This is Continuum Drag, a weekly podcast where we revisit sci-fi, fantasy, and just plain weird shows.
This week, Mann Machine, Episode 9.
You seem to be in a state of sleep deprivation today, man.
What makes you say that?
Well, every Tuesday night, Channel 187 shows the Frankenstein movie. And every Wednesday morning, you're overly tired. Over the past few weeks, you've lost valuable REM time to Frankenstein, the son of Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, the ghost of Frankenstein, and Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein.
I know. It started when I was a kid. My Uncle Buford took me to Regency to see the original Frankenstein. I don't know, it just got a hold of me. The cemeteries, the shadows, the storm. It scared the heck out of me.
Really? Normally, you have a very high fear threshold. What was it about Frankenstein that got to you?
What, you kidding? There's this awful artificial thing that walks like a person, but it's totally inhuman, and it's like this weird perversion of science. You know, it was a couple years ago.
Welcome to Continuum Drag, the podcast that says farewell to Man and Machine this week. I'm Luke, here with my co-host Jordan. What's real, Jordan?
I'm really excited to say goodbye to this show. I was a little disappointed because when we started talking before we recorded, I was really trying to motivate you that we were just going to crap all over this thing and just make this a real hate fest. But I think you want to be a little more positive.
Well, we'll see.
I just want it to be a hate fest.
I mean, there's plenty of not good things in this episode,
right, yeah.
So it's not going to be a love fest, I don't think.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean, sort of warm farewell? Maybe not. Maybe like a cool farewell.
Well, I'll tell you, we're really selling it to the audience.
Well, Jordan, I know something that's real.
What's that?
Listeners, it was Jordan's birthday.
Yeah. It was at one point, yeah.
Recently, he had a little birthday.
Oh, no.
And so he gets a little present.
This worked out so well last time.
You loved that present last time.
I did like the present, actually. Oh, well, thank you very much. Should I open it now on the air? Is that the thing?
Yeah, that would be rude to the listener.
Okay, well, hold on. Let me put the mic back. All right, so we can do it live. This is like an unboxing. That's
audio unboxing.
Audio unboxing. Okay, hold on. That's the wrapping paper.
Foley. He's slowly but surely opening a very bad wrapping job I did. And he's getting it.
That's pretty great. Look at his hair. Oh, man. So it's a Greg Evigan album, but it's not just Greg Evigan. It's Greg Evigan and Paul Schaefer called A Year at the Top. Have we talked about this?
No, I didn't know that existed. I found it, and I was just like, why did Paul Schaefer and Greg Evigan do an album together? And I'm like, why ask questions?
Oh, man. We're going to have to listen to this. We'll put this on the record player after.
I'm very curious. what it sounds like.
A Year at the Top, a Norman Lear Tat Communications company? Norman Lear was involved in this? Anyways, that's very odd.
It's very specific, but we're started this podcast to support the Greg Evigan economy, and we're doing it.
That's true. We bought an officially autographed headshot of his.
Yeah, I've got a headshot autographed as Jay Cardigan.
That's right. It was the only one I could find because every other one was him with his shirt off. I didn't think you wanted that on your wall. And then this little gem. So it's apparently 1977.
How old do you think he is now? Like 19?
In this? Oh, yeah, he's probably young.
He looks so young. Paul Schaefer, like a 40-year-old man.
Yeah, he just looks like he's wearing a wig. Well, I'll put a picture of this up on Instagram.
Greg and Paul, A Year at the Top.
Yeah, that was their year on the top. I'm a little disappointed that monkey or whatever he was with in that show didn't show up. Didn't come out and play the tambourine. That's all monkeys can do.
Well, Jordan, happy birthday.
Thank you.
All right, let's get into it. So this is, of course, as we mentioned, the last episode of this show, Man and Machine. As a result, we've taken the escape pod because the ratings just fell too low.
Yeah.
But because of that, we've missed 4 episodes. So you want to try to guess based on the titles what those episodes were about?
Oh, yeah, sure. I was actually thinking about it because we'll discuss it. I don't know if you felt this, but I felt this episode looked a lot different than the other episodes we watched. So I don't know what change happened, but give me the list and we'll go through this.
All right. First episode, Torch Song.
Torch Song?
Yes.
It's about Eve finds out that she has an ability to take her internal heat and light herself on fire and shoot fire out of her hands.
Oh, she becomes the Human Torch.
She becomes a Human Torch and becomes a bit of a folk hero, and people write songs about her and her exploits.
Wow, what a great show.
Yeah. So what did you say what actually
That
happened?
was one of my favorite episodes. No, I don't want to know.
Okay.
I think I actually do know. I think they go undercover at a record company.
They always go undercover every episode.
The fact that you didn't say they went undercover meant it couldn't have been an episode.
Fair enough.
And then the next episode, titled Man's Fate.
Man's Fate. Eve accidentally kills Donnie Man. What's his name?
Bobby Man.
Bobby Man. And then people start the police force turns against her. She then grabs a bunch of guns, starts killing them, and all the robots in the world that we didn't know exist at this point, they also rise up and they kill all of mankind.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
And there's still 3 episodes left.
I know, I was going to say, it's not even the finale.
All right. Third one, Truth or Consequences?
Truth or Consequences? This is actually just the 2 characters sitting in a room playing board games.
Oh, good. I thought maybe they went back to high school undercover and had to play a game of Truth or Consequences.
That was also good. Yeah, that would have been good.
And finally, $1 billion Baby.
What happens is...
I know what happens here, too. Let's see if we both agree.
Okay. I think the 2 characters finally get together, and they actually somehow, through whatever horror... are able to make a half android, half human baby. And because it is the first of its kind, everyone wants it. And but they don't really want to be parents, so they just sell it for auction.
Put on eBay.
And it goes for $1 billion.
Well, I thought it was going to be about they have to go undercover at a boxing gym, so he trains her to be a boxer. But then she gets punched in the head, and he has to pull the plug on her, and it's about assisted suicide.
Yeah, I like yours better than mine. Yours has a moral.
All right.
It's a moral like Roddenberry would have had. You're like, what is the moral?
What is the moral? It's the moral that Paul Haggis and Clint Eastwood would have had.
Anyways, those were great.
Well, we'll never know. We'll never go back and watch them.
No.
There's no way to ever find out.
No, I'm never going to go watch it. The only way I'm ever going to find out about this is if Steve tells us about it.
Yeah, if Steve keeps true to his promise to watch the rest of these episodes. All right. Last week, since we're burning off everything we have left, last week, you had created another game that you let Steve and I choose between. Do you want to do that game before we give up on this?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I'm going to do one change, though, and I'll let you know after who the change is. Because I think there's a character in this show that's worth revisiting. So it's going to be a little bit of Would You Rather. I've changed the title for it. And your options are, of course, characters in this show, which are pretty thin in this show. But we have the options are become partners with, eat vending machine pastries, or send for a lube job for 6 months.
Okay, great.
All right. And we have 4 rounds here. Round 1 is the leads.
I'm blown away. You could get 4 rounds out of
I know.
the show.
It was tough. Round 1, the leads. Detective Bobby Mann, Sergeant Eve Edison, Captain Margaret Claghorn.
Oh, man. I guess I'm going to become partners with Claghorn.
Nice.
I think that's going to be a fun time.
I agree with you.
I think she'd be a great partner, actually. That's the real problem. I don't really want to eat pastries with Bobby Mann, but Eve is 7 years old.
Yeah.
So I'm in a tight spot here. So for the sake of decency, I guess I'm eating pastries with Bobby Mann, and I'm sending Eve off for that lube job.
All right. I'm going to agree with you on that. All right. Don't worry. It's only going to get worse before it gets better. Round 2, villains. And I'll have to explain who these are because you'll never remember any of these characters. Dr. Sidney Victor. He was the dating doctor.
Oh, he's the dating doctor.
Richards. That was Tobin Bell.
Tobin Bell.
And
organ stealer.
That's right. And Mark Kaminsky, the Chinese wine dealer.
Chinese wine dealer.
Mm-hmm. And what great rogues gallery they created in their show. Huh?
Great. I mean, at least 2 of them are like notable character actors.
Yeah.
All right. This is, yep, you're right. It's difficult. I am going to partner with the wine dealer, if only because I love Pirates of the Caribbean, so I just go on a pirate movie with him. I'm probably going to go eat pastries with Jigsaw, because what a great character actor. And Dr. Dating, he can get the lube job. I don't remember anything about him.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. 2 for 2. We're seeing eye to eye on this. Okay, round 3. I've called these one-offs, and because it's characters who showed up and they never came back.
Okay.
First, we have Frank Tana. He was his baseball friend.
Frank Tana?
Yep, that's apparently his name.
Great name.
We got Tommy Chartraw. Do you remember who that is?
Nope.
That's I can't remember his name now. The actor.
John Hawkes?
That's right.
John Hawkes, creepy dater.
Yeah, creepy dater. And then Eric Easton, who was the food critic who ate the peppers.
Yes. All right, this is easy. I'm going to become partners with Booger, the food critic from Revenge of the Nerds. No problem there. I am going to eat pastries with John Hawkes. I mean, I don't like a nice guy either. I want a bad boy who's going to treat me wrong.
Yeah.
And then Baseball Billy. I don't want to. This is the dumbest thing ever, trading baseball cards with a grown man. Go get that lube job.
Yeah, I will also send Tana to go to the lube job because who are you? Go away and talk about your grass at a barbecue. You're
Crazy.
You're out of here. But I would I'd switch. I'd be partners with Tommy Chartra.
Oh.
Yeah. And Eric, I guess I'd be eating pastries with Eric Easton. He knows a little bit something about pastries. A little something about eating pastries. Round 4. And I've called this round more interesting than the leads. And I've added one character. You'll see that this last episode. First character, Burn Rooter.
Right.
Second is Kathleen, and who Kathleen was the secretary that had the little eye drop.
Oh,
sort of
her.
thing.
Yeah, she murdered someone in prison.
And last is someone who I adjusted. Originally, I was going to say the coroner because I thought he did a pretty good job, but I've switched it to Mikey, who is in this episode so big.
Yeah, Mikey plays a big part in this
Yeah.
particular episode. All right. Who was the first one again?
Burn Rooter.
All right. Okay. I'm going to...
You got to be partners with Burn Rooter. That's all he's got
I'm
left.
going to be partners with Burner. It's true. It's the only option. This is a tough one because I don't remember the middle one either.
Kathleen the secretary?
Kathleen the
Remember she
secretary.
kept hitting on him for no reason?
Okay, I guess I will have pace with Kathleen Secretary because I did like when she walked down that negligee. I'm like, oh, you're my type. And Mikey, sorry, you're out of here. Get that lube job.
You know, we came so close to agreeing because this one I agree with you too. If it wasn't for old Eric Easton, I think he threw us off there in round 3. But I agree with you on these. So, yeah, Mikey's got to go. She's so annoying.
Mikey was a lot.
She's a lot to handle. But on that note, we get to find more out about Mikey here.
Well, let's get into the episode. Here is the IMDb summary for episode 9, Cold, Cold Heart.
Is it Johnny Tutu 69? Is he doing it again?
We'll find out in a moment. Get excited.
I am
tense.
excited.
Man poses as Eve's dying brother to investigate the death of a doctor who is the only hope for a terminally ill cryonic scientist. And that summary was courtesy of Gus F.
Oh, Gus. You know what? I feel bad because I think it was either the last episode or the one before. I was ragging on him for some reason. I think I was taking out my own life's frustrations onto him, which wasn't fair on poor Gus because he's just out there trying to spread the word of this terrible, terrible show, Man Machine.
And I'll be honest, he kind of took a swing and a miss on describing the Burn Rooter episode and how he was resurrected from the dead.
Yeah.
But the rest of them, very good.
Yeah. So anyways, I apologize to, what's his name? Vern?
Gus F.
Yeah, Gus F.
All right. So the episode kind of starts off with Man sleeping at his desk and really kind of lays out what is going to be a very heavy-handed theme for the entire episode.
Now when this started, my note is he's sleeping at his desk because he's been watching Frankenstein. This show hasn't gotten any funnier. I thought it was just going to be a one-time kind of gag, like not a gag, but more about telling you about his personality again. And he's got these sort of eclectic tastes, to say the least. Very like old-timey things he really likes. And I thought, oh, so now he likes Frankenstein. But this is going to go through the episode nonstop.
Yeah, I mean, there's sort of a conversation about how Frankenstein's his favorite movie. It used to scare him as a child. He hasn't been sleeping because it's been on The Late Show on Channel 187. Which, do you think that's a science fiction thing in this show? Do you think 187 was like an impossible number?
Oh, I don't know.
Because I'm trying to think, how many cable channels are happening in 92? Were they just like, isn't it crazy? In the future, there'll be 187 channels.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I didn't think about that, but it might be an interesting point of like, can you believe how many channels?
Yeah. At any rate, he just starts talking about why he's so freaked out by like Frankenstein because he's like artificial life form who's like grotesque to humanity and he's just describing Eve and Eve is just standing there like staring at him like you're describing me. But I thought this was definitely going to be like clued in at some point. This is just the running gag the whole show is that like everything's Frankenstein. He cannot comprehend how Eve is like Frankenstein.
But not only that, they're also sort of playing, I guess, with the idea that he's also attracted to Frankenstein in some way because she even explicitly says at one point like you like Frankenstein. There's something about this image or this
Idea.
this idea of a character that you are attracted to in some ways. And he's like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. And I didn't know if they were trying to play with that sort of like, will they, won't they sort of thing, which they haven't really done a lot with the show. So it seemed a little bit out of place. But
It definitely walked that line. And it's funny because that scene is like, this is the bookend at the start. That's the bookend at the very end of the show, where he just once again can't correlate the fact. And Eve is even just like really hinting at the fact, like, I think it's because you love Frankenstein.
yeah.
But it's a very weird theme. I mean, not a bad idea. I don't hate the idea of, is an android like Frankenstein?
Yeah, it's not a bad
There's
idea.
a good plot in there somewhere. Not in this.
And let me mention one thing that has nothing to do with anything. Did you notice his hair is especially spiky in this episode?
No, I didn't notice that.
I was like, it's really spiky.
setting a trend.
Yeah, he was setting a trend, yeah, in the near future.
We'll try to lean down on the Frankenstein talk for a little bit anyway. But how about all the stings, all the Frankenstein keyboard stings for the entire show?
Okay, this felt like it was like a Halloween episode. I don't know if it was. It's very easy for me to find out, but I don't care. But it felt like a special Halloween episode. The music is so over the top in a show that already has remarkably over the top music that it's. I think I know what they were going for, but I think they failed about as bad as you can.
I don't think. I'm just flipping back through my notes here because I think this aired between April and July, so there would have been no Halloween period for them to.
But it does feel like a Halloween episode. Do you agree?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're showing so many clips of Frankenstein.
It's like Phantom of the Opera-esque, like organ music and stuff.
Yeah. They're really leaning into this. This kind of leads us into the crime of the week. Essentially, this Russian doctor who specializes in brain diseases died. Fedosov. The good memory. I could not remember his name to save my life. He's died in a motorcycle accident where his motorcycle jumped off a cliff.
I know. They actually give at the same time a lot of detail to his death and then very little detail. It's like how it happened, everything. But like, but why did he jump? Why was he on a cliff? That doesn't matter.
It was just driving too fast along a nice Hollywood hills and just flew off. It's a real Mulholland Drive. This essentially, though, they're like, well, how are we going to solve this case? And there's already a witness waiting to talk to them, which is, of course, Mikey Quinn, as we mentioned earlier.
And Mikey, God bless this actress, she takes a thankless role and dials it up to 1,000 and then goes, let's give it a little bit more. Like it's such a big performance and loud and animated.
I don't disagree. I mean, she was doing more with this part than was ever there, and I appreciated that a little bit. Like, it could get a little grating because the character was written so gratingly, but she was really going for it.
Yeah, and that's kind of how I feel too. It's like the actress, you know what, she made a lot with very little. However, the choice was to be the most annoying person on screen. That was the choice, and it was just like, good on you, but I hate seeing you here.
She's a janitor at the Eternal Society, a cryogenics lab / cult. It's kind of this secret thing. You have to pay like $40,000 to join it. Like 62% of the entertainment industry is members. It's like super exclusive. And well, she's been the janitor there. She's a little freaked out by it because she thinks of her like all the corpses freak her out. But the doctor who died, he had what was the motorcycle called? A Leopard 1040.
Is that what they called it?
That was the motorcycle, just like the one she has. And she had done a little work on it for him and driven it around for him. And now that he died, she's very concerned that someone's going to pin this murder on her. And so she showed up before anyone said anything just to let them know she didn't do it.
Yeah, she's basically like, look, yes, I worked on the bike, but I fixed it. And the fact that he had a motorbike accident has nothing to do with me. And to prove that has nothing to do with me, I'm coming in here and telling you all this. I'm not hiding anything. But now, me saying that, picture me saying that in the loudest, most obnoxious way possible for like 4 minutes straight.
So they're a little curious now with this person showing up. Maybe it is a setup. Eve looks into the smashed bike. She brings it back to her apartment and kind of goes through it and discovers the onboard computer had been reconfigured. So this is definitely a homicide. And it's fun. This is a little side note here. We'll get a little more... Captain Cleghorn very rarely figures into the plot.
I know what you're going to say.
Whenever time she pops up, it's the best scene of the show.
Well, here was weird about this episode, though. I don't think we've ever seen Cleghorn outside of the police department. And in this episode, it's like a sitcom. They're all just hanging out in Eve's apartment constantly.
Well, it was very funny, too, because much like the first episode where Mann's like, I'll give you a ride home, but first I got to feed my dog. He's giving Cleghorn a ride home. But first he's like, oh, we'll just stop in on Eve first. And what is Cleghorn doing that evening?
Her husband is doing rocket pack races, right?
Yes, rocket pack races.
Yeah. I actually had to stop it and rewind because I was like, what did she say?
Anytime they give Cleghorn world-building dialogue to deliver, she just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah.
She just talks about it like it's the most everyday thing. She's like, one day my husband's going to be a smear on the road.
Anyways, rocket pack races. I mean, I would have liked to have maybe seen that
instead of... How good would that have been to see?
Instead of 4 minutes of old Mikey telling us about fixing a bike.
This is about the period of Rocketeer, right? They could just use footage of Rocketeer.
I liked Rocketeer.
Anyway, we'll get back to the actual plot, unfortunately. They decide they're going to go undercover and crash the funeral of this dead doctor of the Eternal Society.
Oh, they always go undercover.
Once again, they pretend to be from Louisiana, but this time they're brother and sisters.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also, I know it's what they've hired Yancey Butler to do, but all of her undercover outfits, they're still sort of like somewhat revealing outfits. Like she's going to a funeral. She's still wearing a miniskirt. Like it's like she's not allowed to like wear a pantsuit or something.
Oh, if you got it, you got to flaunt it, I guess.
I suppose. It's a funeral. I mean...
It is true. What about what Mann was wearing, though?
He was wearing... Oh, hold on. I know because I didn't write it down, but I'm trying to remember. I know he was wearing...
He's basically in a suit, but the shirt he's wearing has one key future difference.
What was it?
There's no collar on it, but he's still wearing a tie. So imagine a tie over top of a collar.
That's
just
right.
Freely exposed.
That's right. But then again, I noticed in the background there were other people,
attendees.
I was gonna say parishioners, so like that's not the right word. Other attendees of the funeral, and they were just wearing normal clothes.
Well, he'll later be in another shirt and tie, normal shirt and tie.
Yeah,
that he got dressed up real fancy with this collarless shirt.
But the most interesting thing I found from the funeral was that the person doing the eulogy was just on a computer screen.
Yes.
Or a TV, I guess.
Yeah, he was teleconferencing in. I think that was the founder of the Eternal Society. A gentleman will come to know more, but he's dying of a brain disease, which is why he can't be there in person, which is what the doctor was trying to cure before he was murdered.
Yeah, it's all important, everyone, but it doesn't really matter.
Very important. At this funeral, it's very funny. They meet the doctor who kind of runs the cryogenics part, a Dr. Unster.
Yeah, William Sanderson.
Not Monster, Dr. Unster.
Dr. Unster, yeah.
Yeah, William Sanderson, of course, of Blade Runner. Our second Deadwood cast member.
Yep, Newhart.
Very.
He always plays that character. Like, he's one of those guys who like you can't take it away from him. Like you need that guy, you'll know who he is. He's just that he does that role.
He's great. And they're sort of talking about the funeral. They come out, they're like, we're brother and sister, and they're like, how did you know the dead person? They're like, oh, we don't. We're just hanging out here. And Eve does a little bit of improv. She's like, because my brother has a debilitating disease.
Yeah. What is the disease? Did you write it down?
I did write it down. She says he's suffering from Bullger's necrosis,
which doesn't sound good.
Well, they say it causes facial tics and hallucinations.
You know what's funny? It took me longer to realize what was happening than it probably should have because I was already just praying for the end of the episode. But this begins the thing of you find out that Mann, for some reason, is very scared to even pretend to have a disease.
Yeah, he's very skittish about dying to the point that like even being undercover and pretending to have this disease, he won't do it. Like I kept hoping he'd start like doing facial tics throughout the episode, but the closest we get to seeing him visualize or like talk about his disease is he does mention he had one hallucination recently.
But he does do facial tics.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, but well, this is maybe ruining a little bit. But what throughout the episode is he starts psychosomatically getting the disease.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
So yeah, he's doing this weird facial tic, and at one point Claghorn's like, "You look terrible. You look like you're dying." And people keep making comments about, and he's like looking all sick, and it's because he's so worried about the idea of pretending to have this disease that he's now manifesting the symptoms.
Right. He's internalized it. Oh, that's funny. I mean, it might just be the YouTube quality you're watching. I'm not sure. Because there's a few periods where Eve or Cleghorn make fun of him. I actually thought they were just like having fun. I thought they were poking at him, like pretending he looked sick to like freak him out more.
No, it's because it's a weird character point to add in. You know, it's one of those things like it's convenient for this episode because we need him to be that way, but there's no resolve. There's no reason for it. It's just something for him to do.
It could have been more over the top for me. This could have been a lot funnier if he really leaned into his stuff.
But don't worry, we get to hear the word Uncle Buford like 8 million times
his
this episode.
His name is Buford, so we hear Buford over and over. His undercover name.
Buford.
But what was his one hallucination that he tells them?
I don't remember. What was it?
He was at a donut shop and he hallucinated that puffy Michael Jackson walked in.
Oh, that's right. I wrote that down, and yeah, my note was Michael Jackson's fat. Unfortunately, obviously, what we found out that it was much sadder for Michael Jackson being, a molester that died early.
He's
from
a monster. Turns out he's a monster.
Yeah, he turns out he's a monster. Not someone who had weight issues. He's a horrible, horrible monster.
Although this is a real thing for them because they leaned into John Candy earlier too. A lot of body shaming on the show.
Yeah.
At any rate, they talk to Dr. Unster for a bit. Then the founder's wife drops by and she's just like tells them, "Oh yeah, sorry about my husband on the video screen. He's dying of Lindsay syndrome, and that's why the doctor was working on a cure for his brain disease. But now that he's dead, I guess that's it for my husband. He's gonna die soon."
Mm-hmm. And I think Mikey shows up at this point because she shows up like 3 or 4 times. She just shows up. It's as if they were like, you know what helped this episode? Mikey. But I don't even think Mikey. She just comes by and goes, "Just so you guys, I got more information. All right, see you later."
It could be now. It could literally be in 15 minutes. But there is like a 5-second scene where she walks in. And she's like, "I've got more information, but I'm too scared. Bye." And she just walks out. I'm like,
yeah.
Okay. Just so we could remember who she was.
Yeah.
Give her a few more. She was great. More screen time.
Yeah. More. Yeah. She was great. She was something.
At any rate, to become members of the Eternal Society and hence get man frozen into a coffin, they need to borrow $20,000 from the police, which they have. Police Cleghorn's like, yeah, no problem.
Only a couple episodes they bought her like a incredibly expensive sports car, so $20,000.
That's true. They bought him that testicle too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they get a tour of the freezer facility with Dr. Unster. Did you catch what their cryogenic freezers are called?
No. What was it?
They kept calling them dewars.
Dewars?
Yeah, and I don't know if they meant like DEWER or DOER, but the entire episode they're like, "You get put in a doer. He's in a doer." I'm like, what is it? I just couldn't figure out what that was short for. Someone's gonna definitely like listen to this and be like, obviously it means
right. It's
short for this. But so they see these doers. They kind of explain how the founder created cryogenics. Do you remember the story of how cryogenics he became his passion?
Yes. Why don't you just tell me?
Okay.
I do. I just honestly, my note right now is this episode is so amazingly boring. So my notes start getting worse and worse. I know he told a story and it was like supposed to be like emotionally thing, but I was like, I don't care. All I remember is I wanted the main doctor to be played by Nick Nolte.
The founder?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, the founder got into cryogenics because he's an electrical engineer, and one day while he was working on an experiment, he accidentally electrocuted his pet hamster, little Carlos.
That's right, yeah.
And poor little Carlos, he was so sad he died, he wrapped him in foil and put him in the freezer so he could bury him at a proper funeral later, which is an insane idea. But that night there was a power outage, and the freezer de-thawed, and when he found little Carlos in the morning, little Carlos had life signs.
Mm-hmm. And they were like, did he survive? They're like, no.
No, he had freezer burn.
Yeah, he had freezer burn. I knew you'd notice that too.
Oh, how could I miss freezer burn?
Yeah.
But anyway, now they've he's committed to this. The doctor who just died is one of the cases where they're sort of walking around seeing where they cryogenically freeze people. And like when you're in a motorcycle accident, like the Russian doctor, they can just save your head. So what we see is all these like bubbles, frozen bubble domes with little tiny heads in them.
Yeah.
That's like that's the only cryogenics we really see, these little heads in like fish bowls.
Let me ask you though. We've mentioned that the founder. Have we mentioned he electrocutes himself? Have we talked about that?
No, that's not much yet.
Okay. Well, we're gonna get to him electrocuting himself, and we can explain that. But let me throw out this one weird thing about that. If let's say you ran a company and you're the head of the company, and you take the horrible decision to kill yourself, do you think it would just be business as normal going forward? Because that's how they act in this episode. They're just like, I'll keep going.
I mean,
I know the plot has to keep going, but
I mean, their whole business is just like put dead people in a freezer. I don't know.
Fair enough.
I don't know if it would really actually throw them off that much.
Fair enough. I guess in this one specific instance, maybe you're right.
There's this weird little scene here where Eve and Mann throw a fake dinner party for the founder's wife, and this other guy, Dr. Sachs.
Oh, you know what? Sorry, I was jumping ahead. I forgot about this because why were they doing that? Again, this had to come to Eve's apartment again.
Well, they spent that money on that set.
Yeah. But it was just, it was like this weird doctor who's and it's hard to describe why he's weird. He's just acting odd.
He's just acting odd, and it's unclear what relationship he had. Like, he's not the cryogenic doctor, and he's not the founder. He's just kind of always, he's not even always there. He just pops up when they need a second person to be in the room. And the whole dinner party is just, I guess, to like win them over to let Mann join the society. And the wife is just like, well, why don't you come meet my husband? He's heard about your plight and your debilitating disease, and much like his own disease, he's taken pity on you, and he wants to meet you in person. And this is where they go to the founder's lab,
Right.
and we kind of see some weird contraptions. Like, it's very Frankenstein's lab. He's got like blood bags, like in some sort of weird contraption that are like going up and down.
And this is, I have to say, the most science fiction-y set they've had
Absolutely.
so far in this show. It's lit very differently. It's shot very differently, and it's for better or worse. And I think a lot of time I don't know if it plays so well, but I appreciated that they were like, let's make an actual futuristic-looking thing, because up to this point, it's been like this kind of faux noir sort of look, and it did not look like that in this episode.
Yeah, this one really leaned into it. And
It looked like a Joel Schumacher sort of really low-budget Joel Schumacher set.
I guess so. Yeah, that's true. It is funny. I think what we see in the entire course of the show with these sets is they tend to lean very like white, like very Macintosh white, all the sets.
Right.
I think that was more to do with like the Californian architecture they had to access to, but it does kind of give it this almost like new Star Trek movie look, because everything is like bright and white.
Yeah.
So it's an unusual look, I think, for this time period in some ways. But the other thing he's invented there is this prototype body warmer, which is these two poles that are essentially like those plasma balls you put your hands on.
I didn't realize it was a body warmer.
Yeah,
Because I was like, why is that thing there? But I just missed the line that he said it was a body warmer, which is so odd.
because he's an electrical engineer, he's been trying to come up with a better way, because like his hamster got the freezer burn. He's trying to find a better
Right.
way to unthaw people, and it's very weird. Like how it works is you put one hand on each pole, and like the electricity comes through, and theoretically, I guess that would dethaw the body. But before we get to his inevitable electrocution on this body warmer,
Let me ask you though, real quick, Luke. If you're dethawing the body though, so would you have to freeze the body in the exact position to
in
put
like
your hands?
Jesus Christ stance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I thought too. I'm just like, that's not a very effective thing for frozen bodies, but
Right.
okay. They kind of have a little back and forth here. It's very funny because no one knows Mann's a cop, but they have a long conversation about the dead doctor and how like, oh, him being killed must have been an attempt to murder me, because now I'll never survive without the doctor, because my disease is coming. And then they have a conversation about Mann's disease, and they talk about how Mann loves fly fishing.
Yeah, I wrote that down too, and I was like, he just goes, I understand you're a fly fisherman, and I went, what? Where did that come from?
I don't know. But here's my question for you. Was that his cover as Buford, or does he actually love fly fishing?
I think all of Mann's alter egos undercover just have his same.
I
likes.
agree.
Yeah.
But this whole thing, I bring it up for one sole purpose alone, is the doctor's like, well, you'll have to teach me to fly fish. I've already booked a room for us to go fly fishing in 2009.
So we never did find out what year this takes place.
So
right?
2009 must be the extreme future in this show.
Right.
Because
Well-
he's basically postulating we'll both die, and then by 2009 we'll both be resurrected.
Look, there's almost 200 channels. It's got to be 2009.
But it's as at this point where the founder does go up there and he's like, well, man, it was very nice to meet you. And then just puts his hands in the body warmers and just electrocutes himself apropos to nothing. In front of man.
I know. It was so, and my note was like, is he giving a tour? Was this a tour right now? And he's like, by the way, so anyways, I'm never going to top this facility. So here I go. Bzzz, burns himself to death.
All our tours end on an electrocution.
Yeah, it's very weird.
So this kind of brings us kind of to the midpoint of the episode. After
Dear God, we're only at the midpoint.
Yeah. After the founder has died, they kind of look into his finances and they discover the Eternal Society is like deeply in debt. He's got no money. It's like basically been not a good business. I think they say he has like $200,000 left. That's all they have left to like hand out after his death.
Oh, that's it? So the company is tenuous at best.
I believe Eve says Eternal Society appears to be eternally in debt.
I didn't catch that. Like, I wish I had that. I gotta find that one.
But what they do find out is that the $200,000 inheritance that he had, for some reason, is going to Dr. Unster, which puts a real red flag on Unster. Perhaps he killed the doctor in order to kill the founder in order to get $200,000.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's getting compensated pretty well already at the company.
It didn't feel like enough money, especially when we like found out like it cost $40,000 to join. Like it's just like that $200,000 doesn't seem like a lot in the inflation of the future. But what they do is they have Dr. Unster drop by Eve's apartment to fill out some paperwork so they can like kind of get a sense of him. And all we get here is another scene where someone's just like, Eve, you're so different. I need to flirt with you.
Yeah, which has been a recurring theme throughout almost every episode. There's been someone who they just keep playing like, can you believe how beautiful she is? There's something about her. It's like, yeah, she's a robot.
It's true. Oh, I have a question for you. This is a bit of a side note. Up until this point, did you think Eve lived in an apartment or a house?
I always assumed it was an apartment.
Oh, interesting. I always assumed it was a house, but there was a big like establishing shot of her apartment with the yellow sports car in the front of it. And I was like so jarred by it.
Why'd you think it was a house?
I don't know. For some reason, I think in my head, I thought I had seen them coming into a house at some point, but I think I might have just imagined it.
I just figure she's young, she's hip, she's living in the city. She doesn't want to be in like a house in the suburbs.
Fair enough. Not like man.
Not like man. He's definitely living in a house.
He is. We've seen his dog.
Oh, that's right. Oh yeah, the one episode, the dog had talked and then never came back again.
This is the point where actually Mikey finally does return to give real information, but she is already paranoid and nervous. She's trying to leave and Man's trying to keep her there. And he's like, what's it going to take for you to tell me what you know? And she's like, oh man, I need a shot. And Man says, you want me to hit you?
I know it was like, I know they're going for that's the kind of humor the show is, but no one would respond to that. Everyone knows what that means.
No one's ever asked for a shot and then someone's like, oh, you would like to be punched in the face?
Yeah. But what she wants is a pina colada.
Yeah.
You know, I have a question for you. So, like, smash cut, they're having a drink. Is it at the police department?
Yeah. He Uber Eats a pina colada to the police department for her.
Oh, see, that's what you... Now, what I thought was at some point in the police department, there's a bar.
There's a bartender just, like, making a
That's
pina
what I thought.
colada.
I thought, like, oh, we'll just go downstairs with a police bar.
Hey, I mean, very convenient.
Yeah.
I mean, and we've already established there are no laws in the future.
Yeah, so, I mean, you never know what it is.
Anyway, what we kind of get out of Mikey here is that she thinks the doctor was murdered by that rando guy, Dr. Sachs, we saw earlier, because she saw him messing around with the bike at some point.
But we do know he's creepy looking.
We do know he's creepy looking. We don't know what sort of purpose he serves otherwise at the company. She's still really paranoid, so Man's like, all right, we'll take you to Eve's apartment. You'll be safe at a cop's apartment. And they leave her there because they've got a laser disc queued up and popcorn ready to go. And they're like, we're going to head over to Eternal Society, break in like we like to do, search for some clues. You stay here, and no one will know you're here. You'll be fine. And they leave. And somehow, someone does know she's there?
Yeah, it is what's his face,
Dr. Sachs.
and he comes in very sneakily and sort of like he's clearly coming into a kill her.
The most ominous saxophone music ever.
Yeah, like, and it's just nonstop. Like, it's played also at like 3 times the volume of the audio of what everyone's saying, so you just can't get out of your head the music. But yes, they're like, don't worry, you'll be fine here. And then 3 seconds later, someone knows she's there.
He's literally breaking into the
Yeah.
apartment. She's watching the Laserdisc, which just happens to be what movie?
Frankenstein.
Of course.
Well, actually, I think it's Frankenstein's Bride,
I think you're right. But
or Bride of Frankenstein. Excuse me.
this is clearly where the director had the most fun that day, because the scene she's watching is Frankenstein sneaking up on a woman behind her back, and it's a real sneaky scene. And he intercuts that with his own shot for shot remake of that scene where Dr. Sachs is sneaking up on Mikey behind her
Yeah.
back.
Do you remember, for anyone listening to this, do you remember in E.T. where Elliot and E.T. are connected? So Elliot starts enacting what E.T.'s watching. I think he was watching Casablanca or something like that. And that was a very cute kind of scene. And it showed, the reason to show it was there was like a connection between the two, blah, blah, blah. This is just like the director being like, wouldn't it be funny if like she reacts the same as the woman in the movie? You're like, why? And that's why I was like, this almost feels like an alternate reality episode. like a one-off where like we can just do whatever we want because everything's weird.
It's out of continuity. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
At any rate, it basically ends with Mikey sees him. She pulls a gun on him and catches him, and basically we get like, yeah, you're right. I did kill the Russian doctor, and I'm here to kill you.
And she also goes like, are you even a doctor? And he's like, no. And I was like, what? Who is he?
What is going on?
Yeah.
Who is this? Like, the guy we've been hunting is this nobody doctor, apparently? And also, we basically leave with Man holding a gun on him, and we never come back to either of those two characters. What happened to them? Who knows?
Oh, I didn't even realize that. You're right. So I guess they made up.
Mikey murdered him in cold blood and then went on the run.
He died in another motorbike accident. And
Oh,
she's like, oh, coincidence.
I was working on the bike, but it wasn't
Yeah.
me. That Leopard 1040, they're tough bikes. We jump now to the Eternal Society where they've broken in. Eve is, she's gone to open up the founder's freezer or doer
Yeah.
to maybe break off his finger so they can genetically test it.
At one point, she puts her hand in and she's like, I need the finger. And then he's like, do you feel something? She's like, I feel something hard. I hope it's a finger. I'm like, okay.
Classic comedy.
Yeah, that's the comedy.
And basically, I guess they're going to test to see if the founder's really in there. Why do they think he's not? What piece of evidence have they found so far? All they know is Dr. Sachs might have killed that guy, but now they're breaking in to steal the DNA of the founder they think is dead. He is not.
Well, this episode sort of has all of the problems we've kind of seen in bits and pieces in all the episodes. It's like they were like, this might be our last episode. Let's throw all the problems in. And the problems really are...
You know what people like? The problems.
Yeah, the problems of this show. But it is, we've talked about it before. People make wild assumptions just to get from point A to point B. Characters come in and out, don't really give information just so they can come back later and give information that wasn't really important anyway. There's huge leaps of logic. There's scenes that don't really make sense. I don't know if it was the script or the editing, but all the episodes are very kind of disjointed if you're actually paying attention. If you're just kind of like letting it glaze over, you're like, yeah, now they're walking somewhere else. But it is a lot of, why are you here? Oh, I need a sandwich. Anyway, is that a murderer? Hey, what time is it? It's 6 o'clock. Must be a murderer. You're like, what? What is happening in the show? and this episode is particularly bad with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think she gets a DNA sample. At any rate, for some reason, Mann wanders off, leaving her down there. He just walks away.
And what happens to her?
Dr. Unster comes downstairs, so she goes to hide in one of the doers so he won't find her. He, apropos to nothing, locks the doer. He doesn't know she's in there. He locks the doer and turns it on to freeze.
Yeah. So it's like he just sees a container and he's like, well, I better put that on full blast. But it's really so you can have this hilarious look of her like becoming a snowman.
Yeah, we keep cutting back to her like
woman.
Getting like more and more covered in snow.
Yeah. And it looks funny. It's like, she's all frosty
and while Mann's wandering around, he bumps into the founder, who's not dead at all, which I guess is a surprise in that I wasn't paying attention. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
He's surprised. Dr. Unster's surprised. He wasn't in on it at all.
No.
And basically, the founder really lays out his whole plan. He's like, hey, this whole cryogenic thing, fake. I faked my disease so that I could come back from the dead, and then people would start putting money into it to get me out of debt. It's all just a long con.
Yeah, so it's just a fraud. Again, there's an inkling of an interesting idea there. The idea that someone would create an entire company just to save their own debt or financial problems. There's an interesting idea here, but they sort of just threw that in the end. It's like they got to page 45 and went, oh, I don't know why. It's a fake company, that's why.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid reveal. It's just, there's no seeding to it at all. And also they reveal why they killed the doctor, because if he had no disease, why kill the doctor? And it's very funny. The doctor basically found a cure for his brain disease, and that would have obviously revealed he didn't have it. So they killed him instead of like allowing disease to be cured.
Yeah, it's just like, let's just get rid of him.
So they're like doubly evil. At any rate, his wife comes out, holds them both. So there's like now the founder and his wife have caught Unster and Mann. They take them back down to the cryogenic room because they're gonna, I don't know, inject them with something to kill them or something, and then maybe freeze them to hide the bodies. But of course, what we know is Eve's been freezing in that doer this whole time.
So here's what we did find out about Eve. She can take a bullet, right? She's got shot before, right?
Yeah.
So she can get shot. She can be frozen, but electrocution. So you know what I realized she actually is? She's one of the Westworld robots. She has one weakness. Hers happens to be electricity.
It's true. They've established that earlier. She can't be electrocuted.
Yeah, but that's her only weakness.
Her only weakness. Because yes, while she's freezing, she finally like kicks the door off the doer, and she comes out, and because she's been frozen, she's like a little stiff when she walks around. So she looks a little bit like, some might say, Frankenstein? And basically we kind of get in a fight. Mann fights the founder. Eve fights his wife.
Of course she does.
And of course Eve is so frozen that she needs to de-thaw. And she goes and she puts herself in the body thaw and like electrocutes herself, which I think now discounts the idea that electricity kills her.
I think she can warm herself.
All right. So the electricity warmed her.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they basically got to use all the gags they've had, and that's it. They catch the bad guys. Eve briefly looked like Frankenstein, and the whole episode around the concept of like, hey, isn't a robot like a Frankenstein? Has completed.
And that's the season of this show.
That's the wrap up of this show. Although, you know what, I watched the credits again. They must have moved it around the schedule, I think, because in the credits of this one, they're like, next up, Quantum Leap.
Oh.
Which better lead in.
What an odd time of TV that you could have had them going from a promotion to Seinfeld or Quantum Leap? I know those shows, there was an overlap, but they seem like two different generations of TV shows.
It's true. It's true. What a time to be alive. 1992.
Yeah. Would you have been watching this?
This show? It's not out of the question. If it was on at like...
A nice little 10-year-old, you're sitting watching your black and white TV or whatever you had there.
Well, I would have been... Yeah, I guess I would have been 10. So I would have probably been allowed to watch like one... Like, I had to go to bed at like 8 o'clock every night.
No, me too.
And so you were allowed to go read. So I might have been able to... If this was on at 7 and like my other options at 7 weren't any better, this probably would have been the show.
Right.
It wasn't though, because I never heard of the show before.
I didn't either.
It's not out of the question. I might have watched it though. I mean, Steve clearly had a thing for Yancey Butler.
Yancey
Butler.
I think that sounds right.
Yancey Butler.
You know what? We could look it up, but I'd say we don't.
Okay. So let's get a little final thoughts. We'll wrap up the entire series then. Steve found something that he didn't get to bring up last episode, but it was kind of interesting. Not groundbreaking, but was kind of interesting as a throughfare of some of these shows, these kind of failure science fiction shows, or science fiction shows that didn't take off anyway. You know, our bread and butter.
Yeah, exactly.
The producer of Man Machine was also the assistant director on Holmes and Yo-Yo, the show we haven't watched yet, but another robot cop show from probably a generation earlier.
It's like Holmes and Yo-Yo, Man Machine, Almost Human. All the same show, different generations trying the same idea again.
Absolutely. I mean, I have to assume this wasn't on purpose, but just like an anomaly in his career where he's just like, how am I back on a robot cop show again?
Yeah, right.
How did this happen to me? It was an interesting note that this one person had this weird throughfare. I think ultimately for this show, I think why it didn't click for me anyway, it wasn't good at being a police show. Up until this last episode, the science fiction was light at best. It was like window dressing the science fiction.
We mentioned it before. Really, the only world building or the only attempt at world building seemed at best done just through them listening to the radio, and at worst as a sort of like, we'll throw this in as a little gag so they know it's the future, as opposed to, well, you guys chose to put it in this time period. Like, it felt almost like they didn't want to have this show be about a cop and a robot in the future. So they're like, well, we'll stay away from everything science fiction. But it's like, you guys wrote it. You could have just made this in 1992 with a cop partnership. You know what I mean? Like, this didn't have to be
true. You could have given a robot cop in 92 and not had to worry about like any science fiction. Like, just the one piece is there's a robot now.
Yeah. So it just feels like they maybe, I don't know. I think if there's a through line through a lot of the shows we've seen that have been what we can say is less successful, either they got canceled or they just didn't work, is that there's almost this intangible thing that doesn't click. I actually don't think the actors were bad in this, but the writing didn't match the tone, which didn't match the way it looked, which it feels like the actors sometimes didn't know what they were doing. Like we were saying, Mikey comes in, it's like she was in a different TV show than the rest of the actors. It's just something just wasn't working.
I think what it was is ultimately, like, on its surface, you'd say this is either science fiction or a cop show or, you know, a mesh of the two. It really feels to me like what the creator really wanted to make was just like an adventure show, like a MacGyver or something. Just like every week there's a crazy new adventure that go on. But you're right. Why saddle yourself with the cop genre and the science fiction genre?
Yeah, it's like this could have been anything. This could be anything you wanted. And it was like they wrote this show, sold it, and then went, oh no, I have to make that thing.
I didn't want to make a cop or a robot show. I wanted to make an adventure show.
Yeah. And you end up with an unfortunate, I'm gonna say, quite a bad show. Although I will say you did mention it. I think it was in maybe the first podcast episode that if we had watched this before Almost Human, the reviews may have almost been maybe not quite reversed, but I think we would have been a little bit nicer to this and a little bit meaner to Almost Human.
I agree.
Almost Human
is better.
It's a better show. There's no question about it.
I said earlier that it might not be, but as I've gotten through these 5 episodes, I'm like, it's still, Almost Human, it's easier to watch.
It's got its problems, but it's an easier show to watch.
Yeah. All right, Jordan, give me a rating.
This episode, I'm going to be really generous with it and give it a 2 out of 10 because I hated it. I hated this episode. I didn't hate the show, but I hated this episode so much. So I'm getting it a 2 out of 10.
Fair enough. I think I'm just going to... I want to be nicer to it, but I think I'm going to give it a 2.5. I like the idea of the Frankenstein theme. It just never clicked, so I'm going to give it a 2.5.
Nice.
And that means I can tell you the final rating for this show entirely. When What's the computer coming up with here? The final rating for the episodes we could stand to watch of Man Machine comes to 3.66.
Ooh, now let me ask you something. You may not have this information at your fingertips, Luke. And I know that it takes a while to boot up the computer here. Is this our lowest rated show?
You know what?
Now, I don't think we can count pilots because, as we know, at the count of three, what was the worst thing we ever watched?
Justice
1, 2, 3,
League.
Justice League. but as a series, is it the worst?
You know what? Let me have a quick look, and I will tell you.
While Luke's looking it up, it is a funny thing. I don't know if I have to mention it, but something is interesting that you see is you do look back on some of these things we've watched, and we've done quite a few series at this point. Some of them I think we've remembered more fondly, maybe unfairly, and some you think back and go, ugh, like, I can't believe I rated that so high. Like, Tech War was the first show we ever did. Those ratings are way higher than they should be.
I mean,
like, look, Tech War has its moments, but like, it's not a good show. And like, I think we were I know I gave one episode a really high mark, but like,
I mean, I don't know how I feel with Tech War anymore. Sometimes I still think of it nostalgically, but it is funny. Much like when we first did Tech War, another cop show, it was the only show up till now that we've ever ejected from.
Right.
But I did find out this is the lowest rated for sure. The closest was 4.28 for Galactica 1980.
Wow. Now, let me ask you, looking back, what's a worse show?
This?
I'd agree with you.
I would still rather watch Galactica 1980.
Yeah, at least Galactica was so absurd and so odd and funny at points that you could, even if you hated the episode, like it could be still fun. Like we watched farmers jumping 50 feet in the air to farm for some reason.
With one of the greatest songs I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah, but this had nothing.
I think I don't need to ask this, but there's no way you'd recommend this to anyone, right?
Never.
I think this can be forgotten to the history of time.
The only thing I would recommend this to is if someone asked me if they wanted a shot.
Let me punch you in the face?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, Jordan. Well, that wraps it up for Man Machine. We'll be back next week with a TV movie.
Oh, right,
or
yeah.
pilot.
What are we watching?
I think we're going to watch a show that its name slips my mind right now, but
Frequency?
Global Frequency.
That's it.
And it wasn't a TV movie, actually. It was a pilot that actually was never released. It got leaked online at some point, and that's the only reason that anyone has access to it. So I'm curious. It'll be the first time we've done anything like that. So it'll be interesting. In the meantime, you can email us here about Man and Machine or anything else at continuumdrag@gmail.com. And we'll have clips and stuff from the show this week on our social media at Continuum Drag. That's on Instagram and Twitter.
I'll just say, we may not. There's almost nothing this episode to pull.
Frankenstein stuff.
Yeah,
we'll just show Frankenstein. We'll put Frankenstein up
yeah.
in 7 clips. But yeah, that wraps it up, Jordan. Listener, thanks for tuning in. And Jordan, see you next week.
Yeah, see you then.
Continuum Drag is recorded in Toronto, Ontario. Theme music by James Rick Seidler. Produced by Jordan Delic and Luke Black. Special thanks to Aaron Yunes, Adam Wheatner, Jeff Hanley, Jane McRae, and Stephen Packard.